All right, so before we got our family milk cow a little over 2.5 years ago, one of the main questions we had is, what is this gonna cost us, both in terms of time and money? And so we are gonna break down for you what we've experienced in terms of the cost of having a family milk cow, both in terms of time and money that we've experienced over the last 2.5 years of owning our cow.
Before we get into that, we had some excitement on the homestead this week. We have a baby calf, which is awesome. So
She's so cute.
Yeah, our milk cow Thimble gave birth on Friday night just before midnight. And we had been waiting for this calf to come for a long time. We were checking like every couple hours, anticipating her coming. And yeah, she's here. It was sort of an interesting, so our son, like 1-year-old son, got some sort of bug bite and it was pretty bad, and we ended up having to take him to the ER that night. And it was a really long, drawn out process, and everyone ended up being fine. Came back from the ER, we're like, we should check on her. It was like close to midnight. We should just check on her, see what's going on. And I'm pretty sure that the baby calf had literally slipped out just like moments before I got there. Like it was like
Fresh out.
Fresh out, yeah. And so, yeah, so I don't know if this is normal or not. So she gave birth standing up, and what happened was the calf came out and like plopped down on its head, and then its head kind of like folded down, like its body folded over its head. So it was like this really weird twisted neck position thing, and it wasn't moving at first, and it looked concerning. So anyways, I went in and rolled her over. I think they probably would have figured it out. Everything would have been okay, but it just kind of seemed like this providential moment of we went to
us arriving right when she was born.
Right at that moment, and we were there. And
plus, it was just really sweet and fun to be out there when she was, just tiny, and see Thimble really be an awesome mama and take care of her and see her, standing up literally, 10 minutes after she was born, and them just doing so well.
And we went out there at 5 a.m. the next morning, and she was nursing like a champ and doing great. So
it was kind of the icing on the cake after a not so fun night. So that was fun.
Yeah,
so that's been exciting. So family milk cow. So we're from the suburbs. We did not grow up farming. We did not grow up drinking raw milk. We did not grow up having a milk cow. We did not grow up knowing anything about this stuff. But about 10 years ago, we started this real food journey. We started eating real, nourishing foods and looking into all of these things. And we made the switch from purchasing pasteurized milk to looking for farms and purchasing fresh raw milk. And so that was about 10 years ago. And when we were doing that, we were driving all over the place to these farms to buy milk. And that was a priority for us. Like we would drive all over creation. We would plan trips around going to specific locations so we could like stock up on these good farm products and things like that, but we had never really done any of it personally. But we really loved getting to know these farms and really loved knowing where our food came from and really saw awesome health benefits. And so fast forward to about 3 years ago, we moved to a very rural area and from the suburbs, and we were buying actually milk from just a small family whose daughter milked her cow. They just had a family milk cow, and we happened to get connected with them, and we were getting milk from them. And a few months after that, the mom told me that they were going to be getting rid of their milk cow because the daughter no longer had time to take care of it. And I just kind of casually mentioned like, oh, I'd love to have a milk cow one day, kind of this dream world, like that'd be so great to have a milk cow. But I wasn't really serious. But she's like, oh, you should buy her. I was kind of like, I don't know anything about having a milk cow. I've never milked a thing in my life, and I've never had a cow.
And then she came home and told me all this, and I was like, I've never even thought about having a milk cow before. So.
And so we talked about it. We did any sort of research that we could, and we ended up saying yes. And so we brought home our milk cow. We learned how to milk her. We learned all the ins and outs. And here we are 2.5 years later. She's loving it. She's having calves. She's having babies. We're milking her, and it's really awesome. It's really sweet. It's basically like we had gotten a new member of our family when we brought her home that day. And so, so it's been an experience, but that's kind of where we're coming from in this. And so we're going to break down what have the costs been, both in terms of time and money.
Yeah, and I guess even before we do that, like, so there's literally hundreds of different ways to raise a milk cow. Like, everyone has their own ways of doing it, ins and outs, and things that they do that are unique for their farm and for their animals and for their family. And so what we do will not necessarily translate to everybody, but...
And we're not really going off of... We didn't really get taught anything.
Yeah, we figured it out a lot as we go.
Yeah, if we had questions come up, we would YouTube them or Google them or try to figure out the answers. But
So we have a separate video called Owning a Family Milk Cow Basics, where we basically just break down all of the kind of ins and outs of what we do and some of the equipment and things like that. And so we're not going to cover all of that, but we're going to cover the costs of a lot of that. So you can hop over and watch that video after this and find out some more of what we do. But we, just to recap, I mean, we milk by hand, we raise our cows on pasture, they only eat grass and then hay in the winter times. There's no grains. We calf share as well. And basically our goal is just to keep things as simple as possible.
Yeah.
Low cost, simple systems and setups for our cows and for our family. We have a young family, and in order to make all this work, we just can't be like putting our whole day towards
both in terms of time and money. We've tried to, investing in her like she is a member of our family, just kind of how we live our lives in general for all of us, is pretty simple, pretty minimal, just really basic, and it's worked well for us.
Yeah.
So I think before we get into the conversation of kind of breaking down costs and equipment and all of the nitty-gritty details of having a family milk cow, I think there's kind of a bigger discussion around having a family milk cow that's more centered on values. And so there's a lot of things that having a family milk cow that you can't put a cost to. And so there are positives and there are negatives. So like last year, for example, we missed a vacation that we were planning on going on because our calf had weaned, and so we had to milk our cow every day, and we didn't have anyone to do it for us. And
literally like days before the vacation happened.
The calf weaned
like the week before. Or something
we were
like
calf sharing and hoping that she would still be nursing, so we would be okay with getting away for a few days, but
didn't work out that year.
Yeah, right. So, so there are sacrifices that come along with it that some are hard. It's like Christmas. It's a 365-day commitment.
Yeah, but I guess on the flip side of that, like, there are so many amazing benefits of having a milk cow. And like, I think one of them, honestly, never having milked anything in my life before, understood how that worked or what that looked like practically in your life and world. Like, I was blown away how much percentage of our food comes from dairy. Like, I don't know, it's probably like a third of our diet or something like that.
We use a lot of things.
I don't know what the exact percentage of breakdown is, but like, we eat a ton of dairy now, and like more so probably even than we did before. But it makes up a huge percentage of our diet.
Milk and cheese and butter and yogurt, ice cream. Yeah, lots of good stuff.
And it's so good, and like so much nutrition too, nutritional value that's packed in there. So
a huge part of our diet is milk or is dairy-based things. But I feel like there's also so many just experiential and educational benefits to having a milk cow that you can't really put a price tag on. So like the other day, our 3-year-old said to me, like in very serious, like, Mommy, where do Grammy and Papa have a milk cow? Like his grandma and grandpa, do they have a milk cow? And I was like, no, they don't have a milk cow. And he was so concerned, and he said, well, where do they get their milk from? Like, and I mean, his category for milk was that it comes from the cow that you have, and he just doesn't have a category for buying milk at the store, which I just thought was so sweet. But like, yeah, just that idea of teaching your kids or your family where their food comes from, and then having the opportunity to learn how to go out and actually do it, and the opportunity to the experience of being in nature and having that relationship with an animal, like all of these things are just really, really sweet, and you just can't put a price tag on them. And so yes, it's a time investment. Yes, it's a money investment, but part of the things you get out of it, you can't put a price tag on. It's more like a hobby or something that gives you joy that you are choosing to invest in. And so for us, those things have been positives.
Our milk cow Thimble is almost like a sister to them, and like they love
sweet.
her, and
she's the best.
And we look forward to when they're at the age where they can like help with the chores and milking and things like that, and they'll get right in there and be a part of it and experiencing.
Like honestly, going out and milking every morning is like my morning meditation. Like it's just like, it's so good for my soul, my health, it's like I can't even imagine not doing it as a part of my world. Like I just enjoy it so much. It gets me outside. It gets me going first thing in the morning. Like I just love it. And so I feel like, yeah, it's a time cost, but those are the benefits that for me personally, I just love and are a really good fit. And I'm not saying that everyone would love doing that, but I do. I really love just what milking, does for our family and does for me personally.
All right, so cost breakdown of owning a family milk cow. We're gonna get into it here. It's a little complicated to really package, I guess, all of the numbers together.
It's not, what we have here is not, it's like our best guesstimate, but it's not comparing apples to apples. So when you talk about purchasing milk, cheese, yogurt, cream, ice cream, all these things like from the store, or even another farm, like it's the quality difference of having a cow and like doing it, like you just can't buy those products anywhere else.
Yeah.
And so it's like you can't even compare the butter you make compared to the butter you buy from the store, because the butter you make is just like 10 times better and better for you and of more quality. So even when you compare the costs, just know like it's not apples to apples.
So we figure we get about a gallon and a half of milk a day, which we're not milking for production. We get about a gallon and a half from our cow a day, 7 days a week. So we're figuring about 12 gallons.
We only milk once
week.
a day.
And we only milk once a day. And so
all year, no matter what, we've never milked twice.
So 12 gallons per week is kind of what we're working with. We figure we usually consume about half of that in both milk and then the things that we make. I'll throw up a slide here that kind of breaks all of this down, but we have milk, we make ice cream, yogurt, cheese, butter, and then just have some cream generally. Most of those items we are making weekly, on a weekly basis, sometimes more than once a week even. But if we total all that up with kind of comparable pricing of what we would spend if we were to go to another local farm or local source of those products, it would come out to right around $5,000 is what we would spend for those products for our family per year. And we kind of subtract it out. So there's things like we need to buy rennet for cheese making. There's some other expenses like ingredients for making ice cream and just other miscellaneous things.
It's not just milk or cream that goes into them.
Yep. So if we figure in those extra ingredients and costs and subtract out a couple $100 for the year for those, we're right about at $5,000 for the year what we would pay for comparable dairy.
Guesstimate about from what we get from our cow and then how we turn it into products that we consume, what we would spend. So this is based on milking, getting a gallon and a half a day, 7 days a week, so 12 gallons a week. But in our family, I would say consumes about half of that in either milk, cheese, or whatever else we make with it. And then we have about half of it left that we use to really barter with other families for things. And so you can turn that milk into other, even if it's not physical dollars, you can turn it into other things that help your budget. Like for example, we barter for hay for our cows. So for us, hay isn't a cost that we have to pay for. We barter some extra milk for our hay, and that works out really great. We've also bartered for meat in the past. We've bartered for family pictures or family photos. We've bartered for electrical work done on our house. We've bartered for a lot of different things with milk. And so that has saved us money. And so there's been an extra cost in there for us because of having milk that we have saved. And so I think that came out to around like $3,750 or something, like $3,500 to $4,000 that we've saved in that extra milk cost.
If we figure roughly about, if we value our milk at like $12 a gallon.
Yeah, which is kind of
that's the
average in our area.
That we can barter for, or if we were to sell it, what we would sell it for. So with that, so like getting 1.5 gallons of milk a day is really on the low end. Like a lot of milk cows produce way more than that.
And sometimes we do get more than a gallon. Like sometimes we get 2 gallons a day. Like we kind of guesstimated on the low end here.
But if you're milking twice a day, you could easily be getting like 3 to 5 gallons a day.
For
or
sure.
something.
Our cow is not like a mega producer. She's on the smaller side, and it's plenty for us.
And so what we don't really have figured into that overall number of like what we would be spending, for these products elsewhere is the time investment that we have in milking. And so basically we figure we spend around between like milking and straining and just daily chores for the cows. We spend around an hour a day doing that. And so figure an hour a day, 365 days a year. I guess you can assign a value to what your time is worth. If we just plugged in like $30 per hour there, that would come out to like close to $11,000.
And I think it just kind of depends how you're viewing this, because I feel like for us, it's just something we enjoy doing and it's just part of our world. So we don't feel like we need to get paid to milk our cow. Like it's more, I consider it like a hobby and something we enjoy and choose to do. And so for us, that time cost is worth it.
If your time is worth $100 an hour and that's like a priority for you to be maximizing that time and what your income is, like there's just no way you're ever going to make sense of justifying having a milk cow and the time.
If you don't love doing it,
it's much more convenient.
You can buy the products at a local farm.
Go buy it at the local farm. But yeah, with all the like things we talked about, the value piece of it, that you get all these benefits and things that don't have a monetary cost attached to it.
For us, I would rather just do it in our own backyard than drive an hour each way to go pick up milk for $12 a gallon, once a week or whatever. Yeah. All right, so moving on then so if that's what you get from having a family milk cow, what does a cow cost? So this can vary a lot. It just depends on where you live, what's available by you, what you're buying. If you're buying like a cow that is pregnant, that's going to be a different cost than maybe a heifer who's never had a calf, or a cow that has had calf. Like it just is going to depend. A cow that's currently lactating, it's all variable based on where you are and what the situation is. And so we just can't say this is what you're going to spend. We can share our situation or what we spent, which I think we got a really good deal. I said, we just bought it from a family and we were in a pretty rural area that was kind of a dairy country. So
they weren't looking to make money off of us. They were looking to, I think, just recoup the costs they had into it.
Make sure she had a good home.
Yeah. So we spent $900 for our cow, which came with a calf, which was awesome, and we raised her for meat. And
she was currently lactating. Our cow was lactating at the time. She had had one calf already.
Yeah, and we also got like a milk bucket and some like milk jugs and Halter, just a couple basic things to get us going, which was great. Like $900, we couldn't have asked for a better deal. Plus, like also one of the big factors that can play into the cost of a cow is just their temperament and how well trained they are. And she was like Halter trained. She was already trained to milk like once a day.
She was like best in show at the 4-H fair.
She won the gold medal.
Whatever. She was like
first place at the county fair.
Top dog.
Yeah. So she was like a star cow, and we got her like for a really good price.
And
but
she's
anyways,
been so sweet.
So, but in general, like what we've heard and read, like you can expect to pay anywhere probably from like $1,000 to maybe even $3,000 for a good, like, high quality cow, good temperament, good, good training, good genetics, things like that. So it just depends. It varies a lot depending on what you have.
So I would say budget, you said $1,000 to $3,000 for a cow, because it really is the sort of thing that you don't just want to go, and we didn't really know this heading into it, because I feel like it was just kind of more of it just was the right thing at the right time for us. But you really want to make sure and do your research before you make this purchase, that it's the right animal, that it's a good fit for you, that it's coming from a good place, that it's a good temperament, and all of these things are really important when it comes to, because it is a big commitment and you want it to be the right fit for your family.
So the basic equipment that you need for just getting up and going with having a family milk cow, we'll throw up a slide here that kind of shows what we have just for kind of our basic needs and routine for the cow and for us and for milking and straining. We like to keep things really simple, so you could kind of see from this list, there's not a lot on there and it's pretty bare bones and low cost. And so the total that we came up with was $280, and there's ways you could even save there, like, you can buy a used stock tank from Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace, which we actually did with one of ours and probably paid a quarter of the price that we would spend buying a new one. So there's just some milk buckets, pails, halter, some jars, water trough. Iodine, we
don't use it. We got it when we got her to clean her udders, but we didn't end up, we just use soapy water.
We use warm soapy water and just clean her off. Since she's on pasture, she's really clean. So we're just not that worried about it. And then for straining, we use really basic things that you probably already even have on hand at your house. So just a basic strainer. You could use any sort of like bucket then to strain into.
I like to use an 8-cup Pyrex with a pour spout, an 8-cup Pyrex.
Like a measuring cup.
Big half-gallon measuring cup.
And then we just use like old like dish towels clean old rags that we strain the milk with, and they do a great job.
I think there is fancy equipment that you can use, professional strainers, but we've had fine luck doing
that's really as bare bones as it gets. But that's like, if you have land and you have fencing and some of these things in place already, like, you can get going with having a family milk cow with just those basic things. Yeah,
you could spend a lot more on things, but if you don't have to. We did not.
Yep. Yeah, and I guess fencing is another thing. So what we did is we don't have like a permanent fence, but we rotationally graze our cows, which actually we have another video on that too, where we kind of go through our whole routine of how we move our fencing and what we do with that. But we use electro netting, which is a very like mobile temporary fence that we actually bought all of it used. So we found some really good deals on that, and we have a whole bunch of it, and we probably spent like $1,000 on the fencing used, and probably would have spent 3 times that much if we bought it new. We also bought the like fence energizers used. We have some solar energizers that we use for our fencing, and that was probably about $400 between we bought the energizers and then we need to replace the batteries because those were kind of shot in those. So about $400 for that. And you do have to replace batteries in those solar ones every like 4 years, which figure a couple $100 every 4 years for that. So there's expenses with that. You could also just, if you have a more permanent fence, you could just have a, single energizer unit that just plugs in, and those are less expensive, I guess, to have.
That's really been, it has not been an expensive thing. You could have, if you milk with a machine and you need to get that, you could make or build a stanchion, and you can do a lot of other things. We tie her halter to a fence post and milk her that way, and so we have really very little basic equipment, but you certainly could. You could spend more, you could do more.
Which again might depend on your cow and your situation. Our cow is very well trained. She just stands there, very rarely moves, very rarely kicks the bucket. So Joelle mentioned earlier that for hay, we have generally just bartered for hay, but if we were to pay for it, we figured it would come out to around like $1,300 or $1,400 a year for a cow and a calf that are also eating the hay together for milk cow and calf combo. So we've generally seen that, like, so there's the small square bales of hay, and generally having 2 cows, they'll eat through about 1.5 bales per day. It's anywhere from 1 to 1.5. But if we figured they're on hay for 6 months at 1.5 bales per day, I think that came out to like $1,350 for the year. So that's a
so
cost.
It depends on what, how long your cow's eating hay, how long they're on pasture, how long they're eating hay, and what the cost is for hay in
which
your
very
area.
much depends on your location. The further south you are, the more growing days you have, and the less time that they're probably on hay. Where we're at Zone 5, it's about 6 months. And if you go further north, then you might even have more time on hay, which is more expense. So
it just depends what the cost of hay is at the time in your area, which varies year to year.
Yeah, I don't think I said that, but I figured about $5 per bale.
Right, which I'm guessing this year we'll just have to see. It might be going up.
It depends on the weather and inflation, other things and whatnot. So
another cost you want to consider is breeding your cow. So your cow, dairy cows, they have calves pretty regularly, and so we have found really good luck with breeding. So both times we got Thimble bred. We did it through finding a local dairy farmer in our area, because dairy farmers, most of them just do artificial insemination themselves, and so that's how they breed their cows, or at least that's what we've
They have all the
experienced.
equipment.
They have all the equipment to do that. And so the first time we did it, we just called up a dairy farmer friend, and he came over and he did it for us. And then the second, we had moved since, and so the second time we kind of through word of mouth and talking to people, making some phone calls, we were able to find another dairy farmer to come out and do it for us. And so that is a way that we were able to save a significant amount of money doing it. We were charged $50 to have a dairy farmer come out to get a sexed Jersey semen, whatever, sample, AI, done. So, and now we have a heifer calf. So that worked out really, really well. We did call some vets in the area to see how that would work and what that would charge, and that would have been more like $150 to $200 to get the AI stuff that you need and to have them come out to your place and to do a visit. So it would have been about $150 to $200. Alternatively, if you don't want to spend any money and you have access to someone that has the right breed of a bull, and you could just go that route, and that would work too, and that could be free. So it just kind of depends what you want to do, what you have available to you in terms of how much that will cost you. All right, so that's our rough breakdown of what we get from our family milk cow versus what we spend on our family milk cow. So are you going to get rich having a family milk cow? No. Are you going to break even having a family milk cow? Maybe. Or are you going to spend more than it would be worth? Maybe. It really just comes down to what your values are. For us, the quality of the product that we get, the experience, the opportunity, the relationship, all of those things are so worth it for us. But it really takes looking at your life and your values and your family and your situation to figure out whether that cost benefit analysis is worth it and whether that really aligns with your values, because there are costs associated, there are things that you get, but it's really kind of a much bigger commitment than that. It's kind of like deciding whether or not you're going to have children or not, and the cost associated with that. That there's not always a price tag that comes with it. Yeah, so that's been our experience with having a family milk cow. We've probably spent more than what we've gotten, but we've gotten a ton, and it's totally been worth it for us. And so we'd love to hear about what your experience has been. And if you're looking for more information about having a family milk cow, we break down all the basics of what we do, how we milk her, what our routine is, all of these things in our Milk Cow Basics video. So we'll link to that video next, and we'll see you over in that one.